This week, House of the Dragon stopped in its second destination to once again fill us with excitement. Perhaps the opening credit scene was one of the most exciting things we saw in the second episode. Unlike Game of Thrones, where the opening credit scene was based on a map of the world, this show focuses on the family tree and bloodline of Targaryens in a 3D model of Valyria. But the music is actually the same music. That's a pity, because it could be a new music. The show opens with a brutal scene of a few sailors being eaten alive by crabs. It gives us the vibe of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, but instead the scene is far more serious. What an interesting way to introduce the crab feeder. This way of opening reminds me of Breaking Bad. If any of you have watched the show, you must be familiar with this style of storytelling, where you open the show with a vague scene and as you go further you give more details about it. And at the end of the episode you tell your audience what you meant in the beginning. Before we jump to the next scene, let's appreciate the CG and how realistic these crabs are. Then we jump to the small council meeting, and the information given in the background wants to tell us that now we are months after the incidents of the first episode. Sir Ryam Redwine, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, has passed and the council is trying to find a replacement. Such a shame we didn't see too much of him. In A Song of Ice and Fire novels, his name has been mentioned many times and he was Stark Children's favorite member of the Kingsguard. We have a few Easter eggs hidden in the dialogues, and then Lord Corlys Velaryon enters the meeting. One Easter egg being the Silent Sisters, whom we saw in Game of Thrones and their name has been mentioned many times, and another Easter egg referring to Pentos and Volantis. Pentos being the free city where Khal and Daenerys meet for the first time and Daenerys receives the 3 dragon eggs, and Volantis being the free city where Tyrion and Varys pass through on their way to meet Daenerys. Robb Stark's wife was also from Volantis.
You never told me where you're from.
Volantis.
Volantis.
At the end of the scene, Rhaenyra is kicked out of the meeting, and when the door closes to her, it also closes to us. Then the princess is asked to choose a knight for the Kingsguard, where the show again introduces us to some other houses we never heard of in Game of Thrones, unless House Dondarrion of the Black Heaven.
Sir Arlen Dondarrion knighted me after we raised 2 of the watchtowers along the Boneway.
Beric Dondarrion. You've seen better days.
And I won't see them again.
In the main show, Lord Beric Dondarrion was Lord of Black Heaven and head of his family. In the first season, he was sent to Riverlands by Eddard Stark to bring King's justice to Sir Gregor Clegane, the Mountain. The scene takes place in one of the famous locations that was mentioned in Game of Thrones many times. In the next scene, we witness the king talking to Alicent about Valyria and its doom. The scene wants to show us how close Alicent and the king got so far, and again, a good use of cinematography to show how glorious Valyria was. Another important thing is the breaking of the dragon statue by the hands of King Viserys, which once again is a sign that the future of House Targaryen is in great risk in his hands and by his decisions. And of course, things get awkward. In Game of Thrones, sometimes we hear about King Robert's rebellion and the siege of Pike, but the show never tells us the full story and just a hint of it. Here in House of the Dragon, the story of Valyria was mentioned many times, and the king in this scene tries to describe what happened, which is in my opinion admirable. Again, a scene of Rhaenyra and Alicent to show how close they are, and the fact that Rhaenyra wants her father to see her as a grown person and not just a little girl. Once again, we find out that Daemon was right about his brother being weak and everyone wants to use him, and the king being a fool to tell Otto and Alicent all the important matters of the realm. Another awkward scene, which I think it takes place in the same location where Tyrion and Sansa were talking to each other, and some information about dragons. Viserys being Balerion's last rider, which I think he rode the dragon only once, if I remember right. And Vhagar being the biggest living dragon at the moment. Out of this scene, I suppose Rhaenys' personality is more like Lady Olenna Tyrell in the main show. Again, the king talking to Alicent about every matter, a gift which I think Otto asked Alicent to do. An urgent council meeting for a stolen dragon egg, and here I found something interesting. Every shot in this scene has a fixed camera angle until Rhaenyra asks which dragon egg was stolen. Then the camera slowly zooms on Viserys' face to show how much of an important matter it is to him. The stolen egg was actually Dreamfire's egg, and Dreamfire is Rhaena's dragon. And for those of you who don't know who Rhaena is, Rhaena was Jaehaerys' sister. And it's a little bit complicated, I know, but you don't need to know that. You just need to know that this egg was meant to be given to Rhaenyra's brother. And a very small but efficient touch to show how much stress and anxiety Alicent has been dealing with. And then a mindfucker shot of Dragonstone, and here's some advice. If you're on your way down to Dragonstone, there's a high chance you get surprised by a dragon, so heads up. Forget about how badass Damon is, because Kristen is more.
Sir Crispin, wasn't it?
Sir Kristen Cole, my prince.
Ah, yes, apologies. I couldn't recall.
Perhaps my prince recalls when I knocked him off his horse.
And yesterday I was reading a fan theory that this egg might be one of Daenerys' eggs, but I think it can't be true. Here's a list of all dragon eggs, and this egg is one of the 3 Princess Rhaena's eggs, but the ones Daenerys owned, I think, were Elisa Freeman's eggs. Look at the descriptions. They were stolen from Dragonstone and sold to the Sea Lord of Braavos. So this part I want to take back something I said last week. To be honest, I think the CG of this show is almost the same as Game of Thrones. We have some slight improvements, but it's not something that when you see it you say, wow, this looks so much better. Because I heard the dragons are gonna look so much better than the dragons in Game of Thrones. I completely take it back. Craxus is glorious and looks so much better than any other dragon I ever saw in my life. Look at all the small details in his mouth and his voice. Oh man, I love this dragon. Just can't wait to see him on the battlefield. Another small detail is the sense of dragons when they know the rider is in danger, they just come by. We saw that many times in Game of Thrones and now in House of the Dragon also. When Daemon is threatened, Craxus shows up. Then Rhaenyra comes out of nowhere, which I wish she never had because she stopped the bloodshed, and if not because of her, Otto might have been dead by now. Another small detail is Rhaenyra's necklace, which she was wearing during the entire episode, but now in this scene she took it off because she's angry with her uncle. And I also love the chemistry between the two of them. Doesn't matter how angry they are, they really care about each other, which is something that I really liked about them. And let's not forget that the scene also wants to tell us how badass and ambitious Rhaenyra can get. Then again, some information and character development which made me like Mysaria more, and one question that's spinning in my head is, where's the goddamn table that had a map of Westeros on it? Because it was designed in Aegon's age and I think it had to be in this room, or maybe another room, I don't know. Then we see the king asking for some advice from Lionel Strong, Lord of Harrenhal and the head of House Strong, who's the master of laws in the small council. Such a shame the king doesn't listen to his advice. And then we see Viserys and Rhaenyra finally talking to each other, and Rhaenyra hears what she wanted to hear all this time. And the king telling her that she should understand that it's the king's responsibility to remarry and produce more heirs, and she says it's okay, not knowing what's gonna happen. Following that, the king asks for a council meeting to announce this marriage, but things twist at the last moment and Rhaenyra finds out all the things her father and her best friend told her all this time were just not from the bottom of their hearts. This choice also affects the alliance of House Targaryen and House Velaryon. It seems Viserys made the same mistake Robb Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen made, but this time the consequences will be so much bigger. Just wait and see. And the episode ends with an important meeting full of important dialogues between the second sons of the realm, and finally a shot of the crab feeder. Thank you so much for watching this video. May the Lord of Light protect you all.